Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Jagan. I'm the Director of Sports Medicine Research for the Mayo Clinic Health System. My primary role is overseeing a lot of our different research activities in the sports medicine clinic, and then I also see patients on kind of a consulting basis to help them guide them through any kind of exercise or nutritional recommendations to help them meet their overall health and fitness goals. And so today I want to talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about, and that's promoting daily step counts and just promoting overall daily physical activity. So the title of this talk is Every Step Counts, the Dose-Response Relationship Between Daily Steps and Health. When we look at the benefits and the reasons why daily step count activity and overall physical activity are so heavily promoted is that the research is pretty clear on the upsides and the overall health benefits of doing so. So when we just focus on an objective measure of daily physical activity, and that being daily step counts, again, research consistently shows that a greater daily step accumulation is consistently associated with improved health outcomes and lower risk of all-cause mortality. And when we dig into some of the specific health-based benefits, we kind of consistently see reduced incidence of cardiovascular disease, reduced risk of type 2 diabetes, reduced risk of hypertension, and better blood pressure and overall hemodynamic control, reduced risk of obesity and central adiposity, improved mental health, and then even just increased overall functional capacity and some of the early measures of overall aerobic fitness. And then again, kind of tying this into the dose response accumulation or dose response benefits here, you can kind of get a sense by looking at this figure here that as we see greater step count activity, a lot of the reduced risks or hazard ratios get a little bit stronger when we kind of tie some of those relationships together. And so again, a little bit more on why steps matter. And when we kind of look at the dose response benefits here, anytime a patient or an individual is moving more or accumulating more steps throughout the day, that's usually a surrogate measure for increased total daily energy expenditure. That means they're more frequently engaging skeletal muscle tissue and experiencing more skeletal muscle contraction altogether, which is subsequently going to help improve glucose uptake, overall metabolic function, improved indices of lipid metabolism and insulin sensitivity. And then also, anytime we're experiencing increases in blood flow throughout the day, that's going to help us enhance overall endothelial function and just greater vascular health in general. And then collectively, this can also help contribute to reduced states of kind of chronic inflammation. And so together, a lot of these adaptations really kind of create some summative benefits that present a situation where that person is just at a lower overall risk of a lot of different indices or risk factors associated with cardiometabolic disease. And again, if we kind of tie this in to that dose response ratio or relationship here, you can kind of see in some of these figures, again, similar to the one I presented earlier, where we have a curvilinear relationship here in which, again, greater step counts usually creates a stronger benefit or a stronger or larger reduction in some of those all-cause mortality risk factors. And we see some of the biggest improvements or biggest jumps in those reductions in risk factors when we go from really low daily step counts, so something like 3,000 to 4,000 a day, and then all of a sudden we're doubling that and getting upwards to 7,000 or 8,000 steps per day. That's really kind of get where you get the most return on your investment, or kind of the biggest bang for your buck, if you will, in seeing that large jump in some of those reduced risk factors as we cross that threshold. And so there are some additional benefits if we extend beyond that with even higher step counts, getting into 10, 12,000 plus steps a day. But the magnitude of those benefits seem to diminish a little bit, indicating that there might kind of be an upper ceiling to that. And then if we stratify this across different age populations, older adults seem to get a larger benefit if we're even focused on maybe 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day, whereas a younger adult or younger kind of population, they might still need a little bit more higher step count accumulation, maybe closer to 8,000 or 10,000 steps per day to kind of maximize some of those health associated benefits. And then again, once we start getting beyond that upper threshold, 10, 12,000 plus steps per day, not to say it's harmful or there isn't any additional benefit, but just the magnitude of that risk reduction seems to become diminished slightly at that higher upper end. And then the reason why the accumulation component is so important here is because most of the time with daily step counts, the intensity is rather low. And so we need to kind of compensate for the lower intensity by just accumulating greater total volume. And that means greater daily step count accumulation consistently across the different days. And so you've probably heard the goal or kind of the proposed threshold oftentimes of 10,000 steps per day. Well, where did that come from? Is that kind of an evidence-based threshold or value? Honestly, this kind of came or originated from a marketing campaign out of Japan where they developed a pedometer that when translated to English, the name of that pedometer literally translated into just 10,000 steps meter. And so this is kind of, I believe it or not, where that threshold or that goal actually started from. As we highlighted earlier, there is some kind of evidence, again, that would support, again, that dose response relationship, and then also identify the benefits of getting 8 to 10,000 steps per day. But it may not be as well substantiated with evidence as what we would see from maybe 6, 7, 8,000 steps per day is a little bit closer to the threshold that we would maybe want patients or the general population to aim for. But I'm someone that really always looks to optimize the health-related benefits and improvements in different measures of cardiovascular fitness. So I'm fine with the 10,000 steps per day goal. It's an easy one to remember. I think it's a good way to push patients and our clients or whomever we're working with to aim high for that maximal benefit and not just try to do the bare minimum. But so it again depends on how we're viewing this. From a practitioner standpoint, I think 10,000 steps per day is a great goal and a way to push that patient or client. If we're looking at it from more of an evidence-based, scientifically developed threshold, the data aren't quite as clear as what we're maybe led to believe on the magic threshold or benefits of that 10,000 steps per day. And when we, again, kind of extend that and look at maybe some of the limitations of just relying on walking alone, the downsides of this, as I alluded to earlier, is that just the intensity that we typically see from daily step count activity is generally a bit low. And so it may not meet the threshold or the intensities at which we would consider more more vigorous states of physical activity. And then because of that, we're really not providing enough of a stimulus or as strong of a stimulus to start eliciting some of those more higher levels of cardiorespiratory adaptation. So walking alone probably isn't going to improve cardiorespiratory endurance or overall aerobic capacity. It's not really going to improve lactate threshold, not really going to improve mitochondrial density or plasma volume or some of the exercise-specific adaptations that we're going to see if people are active at higher intensities. And even from a musculoskeletal standpoint, walking alone really isn't enough to experience improvements in muscle hypertrophy or lean body mass accrual. Probably not going to lead to any meaningful improvements in muscular strength or bone mineral density. And so while beneficial and certainly kind of tying back into some of the health benefits, we really need to also recommend more higher levels of intensity from just an exercise or physical activity standpoint. And so walking is a good start. It's a great foundational behavior, but kind of insufficient as the sole form of exercise if we're looking to optimize fitness. And so if someone only has 15 or 20 minutes a day to get movement in, you're probably better off using that 20 minutes to get some kind of higher intensity exercise activity in rather than just a slow walk around the neighborhood. But my philosophy is any movement is always better than no movement. So again, it's a good starting point. And so when we look at how we can translate this to clinical populations or patient populations, again, I'm always going to be an advocate for getting patients to move more, accruing more steps, getting more physical activity in. But I think it's also a good idea to remind them that there are some added benefits from doing more advanced exercises, whether that be regular strength training or higher levels of intensity specific to more cardio or aerobic based activities. So whether that's jogging, cycling, swimming, anything that gets the heart rate up a little bit, and then we're accruing more time in some of those moderate to vigorous intensity thresholds throughout the week. And then also, again, coupling that with maybe 2 to 3 days of strength training in there to maximize some of the musculoskeletal benefits is really kind of the perfect weekly strategy if we can both promote weekly step accrual and kind of getting 8 to 10,000 steps per day, but then also pairing that with more structured, higher intensity bouts of physical activity is kind of the best of both worlds in that situation. So this is just a list of the references used for the talk this morning. Hopefully you enjoyed this and hopefully you take away some helpful information that you can translate this back to your patients. Thanks.